This small spot of land in southern Minnesota has always been seen as the crown jewel of the great Midwest. Its communities have held many titles: Athens of the West, Holstein, capital of America. It was even under consideration to hold the capital when Minnesota joined the Union as its 32nd state. Its influence was known nationwide, its schools renowned, its businesses iconic. But one of its greatest claims to fame is the one we're here to talk about today. I'm Sam Temple.
I'm Logan Ledman. Agriculture has been central to the development of not only Rice County, but our state and our country. Today, you'll join us on a journey through the centuries of agricultural innovations and dangers that mark the history of Rice County.
For as long as there have been American farms, there have been American farmers. In the case of Rice County, we began with Native American farmers. Though they were primarily a nomadic people, the Dakota of the area would stake out and return to pieces of land where they would yield their own annual crops. The familiar characters of corn, squash, and beans were present, as were the customary medicines found in the land. On the sky-tinted waters of Minnesota's lakes, they gathered wild rice.
The land of sky-tinted waters is a translation of the original Dakota, Minnesota. That's where we get Minnesota. Their wild rice, however, was not where we get the name for our county. Rice was the name of an early political leader, Henry M. Rice, who was first shown around our neck of the woods by one Alexander Faribault. Alex set up his first camp in the area in 1826. Being part Dakota and part white, he was a successful fur trader and a sort of peacekeeper for the early conflicts between settlers and Native Americans. One of the first things Alex had to do when he made a permanent home in the area was start a farm.
Alex and pretty much every early settler had small subsistence farms, fenced in to keep animals out of the vegetation they needed to survive. Free range was the law of the land and respected by everyone around. The only animal you'd tie up during the day would be horses, and that was only to keep them away from the preying clutches of horse thieves.
Really? Horse thieves, that was a big problem.
Oh, without equestrian.
Okay, well, I'm really champing at the bit to move on from this.
Okay, I'll saddle down.
If it behooves you.
This is a good bit.
Well, let's not beat a dead horse. Alexander Faribault was the first long-term settler in the area. Eventually, Peter Bush arrived to do some blacksmithing, and Luke Hullett, the first individual we'd truly consider a farmer, made this a real settlement. According to an 1882 history of Rice County, Faribault, Bush, and Hullett should be seen as the true founding fathers of Rice County.
One business that has been present in Rice County for as long as there have been farmers is horticulture, or nurseries. These places breed the seeds that farmers plant, aiming to make them as productive and lucrative as possible. The earliest crop these nurseries would be providing for Rice County was wheat. For the first 20-some years of settlement, we were part of the Wheat Belt, a chain of communities whose dominant agricultural export was, you guessed it, wheat.
So after Luke Hullett and Peter Bush and Alexander Faribault, who is coming to farm the land? Well, there are three big methods of getting land to cultivate. One, you could buy it from folks like good old Alex Faribault. Two, you could homestead it thanks to Honest Abe and the Homestead Act. Three, you could receive a land warrant after military service. Since the War of 1812, the government had paid soldiers with land in lieu of actual cash. And that's how many Mexican and Civil War vets found themselves in Rice County after their service.
When they found themselves here, life obviously wasn't very easy. Challenges were abundant, both physical and economic. Here's a quote from F.W. Frink, an early settler, describing the 1858 recession and financial crisis. Agricultural interest was also thriving until the year 1858, when occurred the nearest to a failure of crops that Rice County has ever experienced. The prospect was gloomy, and many families anticipated actual want before the coming of another harvest. Relief came from a quarter, as was the manna in the wilderness by the Israelites. By somebody, the happy discovery was made that our timbered lands were full of ginseng, and forthwith our population was transferred into a community of diggers. And many a man, and even a woman too, would never earn more than $1 a day before received from $2 to $4 for their day's labor in the woods. Thus was Rice County's darkest hour tided over. And from that day to this, there has never been a time when its citizens have had reason to fear for a lack of the necessaries of life. Now that was before the Great Depression, so Rice County's darkest hour might be contentious, but Frink wherever he's from, does bring up ginseng. Ginseng is a root found in the area, highly desired by Asian markets. This shows that even when their own crops failed, Rice County settlers could rely on the land and a little hard labor to get them by.
The Civil War broke out in 1861. This war was, in many ways, intrinsically linked to agriculture. After all, it was a war about slave labor predominantly found on southern farms and plantations. Minnesota had little to no reliance on slave labor in our fields, so we were able to provide for the defenders of our Union. Grain was mainly shipped to the boys fighting down south, instead of to the many mills that had sprouted up locally. The demand for pork greatly increased. When it's salted, it takes longer to spoil, so it can be stored for greater periods of time. It was a trying era for the American family and the American family farm, but Minnesota and Rice County only came out stronger from it on the other end.
The end of the Civil War also marked the end of free-range rule. As more and more people came to stake their land, free range was simply no longer viable, at least how they did it back then. It was around this time, in the 1860s, that a great innovation changed the way we farmed in Rice County. Steam power increased productivity and capacity for harvest like never before. Blacksmiths and foundries toiled away at improving plow and grain binder technologies. As the yield of wheat went up, so did the amount of buyers looking to nab the best crop. Rice County farmers didn't only have some dozen local mills to sell to, but larger ones from big port towns like Hastings were eager to buy. Faribault's own Walcott mills bought wheat left and right and were eventually able to distribute their final product through another great technological progression, the cross-country railroads.
Sadly, the reign of the wheat belt came to an end in about 1875. Unfortunately, many farmers didn't diversify their crops, and after 2 decades of wheat, the soil was relatively shot. That's when Rice County once again showed its ginseng-esque adaptability and forged ahead through the challenge. They surmounted the morphing market by turning to livestock. In the 1880s, bigger, stronger breeds of horses made their way to the area and came to be bred in Rice County. They were a valuable international export. The more lucrative livestock animal of choice, however, was the creature of our colleges and contentment: cows.
Ah, the bovine of beauty.
They are utterly stunning.
I always hope to spot them.
They really dangle my bell.
Okay, we're milking it.
Moving on.
Steering us right back on track, cows really were a big deal to farmers in Rice County. In the 1890s, it's estimated there was a creamery every 5 miles. Butter was mainly produced by country creameries, milk by town creameries, and cheese by caves. The prosperity of pasteurized products allowed farmers to pay off their mortgages and, eventually, invest in new technologies introduced by the oncoming century.
With the turn of the century came a transformation of the very fabric of daily life. The increasing role of gasoline and electricity increased productivity in a major way. With gasoline came tractors. With tractors, the amount of work a single farmer could accomplish was magnified greatly. As these technological breakthroughs slowly spread, agriculture was changed forever. The changing world of farming, from hand labor to horse-drawn plows to machines, had entered the modern era. That was great.
It took a good while for electricity to make its way to the country, with many places taking until the 30s or even later. But electricity was barely enough to help farmers survive the effects of the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. Government took an increased role in regulating agriculture as the nation reeled from economic ruin. When World War II broke out, America was transformed into a productive powerhouse, and the power of the country's agriculture was turned back on.
Now, throughout the 30s and into the 40s, a grand innovation sprouted in the corn field. By the 1940s, hybrid breeds of corn increased yields during and after the wartime years, making corn the staple crop it remains today. This scientific advancement reflects the change that had largely taken place by the end of the war. As the country cooled down from the intensity of the war period, the work of farmers in Rice County was largely done mechanically. Almost all work that once was done by hand could be performed by gasoline or electricity-powered machines.
An explosion of agricultural innovation took place in this period. The growth of soybean farming in the late 50s provided protein for the many cows being bred. In the 60s, the Green Revolution began. The widespread use of chemicals such as insecticides and herbicides, agrochemicals, and chemical fertilizers made large-scale farming possible.
Today, that revolution continues. There are way too many examples to discuss right now, but the newfound power of scientists to travel directly into the genetic material of crops and the development of hydroponics both show how the world of agriculture continues to change. And with these developments have come an increase in jobs reliant on agricultural science. From satellite farming to self-driving tractors, someone needs to be able to repair, run, and program the new technology coming to American farms.
When you think of that farm Alex Faribault started more than 150 years ago, and consider everything that would come after, the destruction and growth of wars, the spread of extraordinary technology, the continued resilience and adaptation of Rice County farmers, it's clear that Rice County is linked inextricably to its agricultural beginnings. Faribault, Bush, and Hullett couldn't have known what their legacy would be. Within their county, farms run by families flourished. Whether it was the Scandinavian immigrants clearing the plot of woodland, or a Civil War veteran starting his life anew, farms brought life to the community. They rose life from the dirt. This is the legacy of our founding fathers. This is the legacy of the Rice County farmer.